which is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, docket number 15-6643, Block 174, Lot 1, 87 Leonard Street in the Tribeca East Historic District, an Italianate-style store and loft building built in 1860 to 63. This is an application to alter the storefront, remove a section of vault lights, and enlarge a rooftop addition.
Discussing affordable housing. We just did the Nantucket thing, and part of the program this year we were talking about affordable housing.
$500,000.
No, $250,000 or less.
Wow.
I'm moving there. I'm moving to nice affordable.
I was going to say, those are two terms that just don't go together. The low-income housing for Nantucket is in South Boston. That's an affordable golf course. That's right. That's right. Subsidized golf. That's right. The Golf Authority.
You can't play with Jack Welch.
Well, you do, but you have to go last.
Yes,
and you,
I
you're right,
will.
you have to carry your bags manually. You can't. No electronic assistance.
And you have to carry somebody else's things. Just to pay for the privilege.
Boy, the irony of having a affordable housing conference on Nantucket. God almighty. Thought of the irony of that.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Emma Waterloo, Preservation Staff. The item before you is for 87 Leonard Street in the Tribeca East Historic District. The building is located mid-block on the north side of the street between Broadway and Church Streets. For your reference, this is the 1940s tax photograph. In 2012, the building received a staff-level permit to alter modern infill at the first floor and to construct this rooftop addition. The existing condition is shown on the far left side of the screen, and the 2012 approval is on the right. The right side of the screen now shows the current proposal, which includes moving these two cast iron arches from the eastern two bays to the western two bays, replacing the infill, including the historic wood bulkheads and a cast iron step located here, which has some bullet glass in it, lowering the bays at here and here to provide barrier-free access. There is no bullet glass currently here, and installing diamond plate at the sidewalk level at these two entrances. There's also a proposal to slightly expand the footprint of the rooftop addition, which will be visible from a narrow view corridor on the south side of Leonard Street. For your reference, here is what was approved in 2012 on the left and the current proposal on the right. Please note that all of this bulkhead work at the roof of the penthouse is not visible and will be reviewed at staff level, so you don't need to consider it here. The project applicant is here to further explain the proposal and answer your questions.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jordan Rogov. I'm with DXA Studio. I think Emma introduced the project very well there. I do want to flip back to just briefly show on the map the edge of the district right here, and then the area, the very small area of visibility for the penthouse enlargement that we're going to discuss and present this afternoon. There's a solid tooth condition just to the east, and that's what allows visibility of the 80 square foot enlargement we're proposing to the rooftop addition that's already been approved. And then we also want to explain the relationship just to our west. 85 Leonard Street is actually the only remaining James Bogardus cast iron building. So in large part what we're proposing today, the alteration or revisions to the previous approval are efforts to re-engage that relationship between these two buildings. The Bogardus building was built in 1861, and in our building, 87 Leonard, was completed 2 years later. So there was quite a bit of borrowing that's happened with the design of our facade. Borrowing?
Yo.
Yeah.
You heard what I said, so that was supposed to be off camera.
I got it.
I said it to another architect, though, so it's okay.
Go ahead.
So
And I didn't answer.
appreciate that. To get back to where Emma left us off, what we have here is a comparison of the approval in 2012 and what we are proposing today. Again, the major changes that we are proposing are migrating these two extant cast iron arches to the west side of the facade, and that's an effort to just clearly delineate what will become the public entry to the building, and then this is going to be a private duplex unit, a condo. What's important about all of this is that the project is already about 70% of the way through construction. The previous owner of the property turned it over to the bank. Our client has acquired it from the bank, and construction's continued. But what's happened is the vertical circulation is already constructed. So our concern and our impetus to move the entry into the public lobby is that this aligns with the core and vertical circulation. The impetus to move the other set of doors is to create a private vestibule into this unit. The current design actually has the doors opening directly into an aisle and a kitchen, which is just an unacceptable condition. Another issue is the previous applicant also has constructed a mezzanine, which in this application is not shown in any of their elevations, but what you have is actually a slab edge condition, which goes the entirety of the storefront, starting at this bay all the way to the east. What we feel pretty strongly that many of the, moving to the next slide, many of the datums that are throughout the project align with the Bogardus design, and that we feel the storefront has been altered considerably over the years, and right now the existing transoms are actually aluminum. So we believe, and we don't have any original drawings, but we believe the original design intent was to have a much more unified storefront, which we're proposing to bring back. What that does, then that also aligns with the slab edge of the mezzanine, which has already been constructed. And it also brings the storefront doors down to 9 feet, whereas the previous application, I believe they were 11'4". And our experience with 11'4" doors is that they don't work very well and require quite a bit of maintenance. Here is the extant cast iron arch located on the eastern side of the building. And then here are the Bogardus arches, which have been fully restored just to the west. The bulkheads, as Emma mentioned, we are proposing to replace these in kind for a number of reasons. However, the owner has made it clear that if this is something that you feel strongly about, an effort to allow for an approval, we would go back to the contractors that we've discussed and try to restore these. But through the years, there are multiple penetrations in each one of the bulkheads. There's been significant water damage to the bulkheads. So what we're proposing is to actually make a single unit as they were originally made and replace in kind. The storefront's actually constructed where the bulkhead, storefront glazing, and transom is all one unit. So that our preference would be to realize it that way. However, if commissioners feel strongly that that is maintained, we'll make our best efforts to.
What is it?
Pine. Pine. And I think it went through a period of about 20 years where nobody painted it and water seeped in. Our feeling is
Proposing to put in?
also pine, but with a much more robust series of coatings. And because it's a condo, it'll have a maintenance program in perpetuity in which it'll be painted consistently. All right. As far as the prismatic vault lighting, the cast iron steps, Emma had mentioned that we're proposing to remove one. The one that we're proposing to remove is actually in Bay 3, and only about a third of it remains. The other two in Bays 4 and 5 here, we want to fully restore. The other bays I should mention, they were removed in 1930. So in the designation report, it explains it was part of a campaign where all of this was changed to diamond plate, which is what we're proposing to continue and install new diamond plate at those locations. As far as lighting goes, we're just proposing doing two concealed lighting on the underside of the two concealed lights on the underside of the cornice, and those will be above the two doors on the facade. This slide is to show. In our conversations with staff, we discussed having an asymmetrically composed facade or restoring some historic elements and not bringing back all of the arches. And in investigating and spending time in the neighborhood, we saw many examples of that sort of restoration and asymmetrical composition. So we feel that that's still very much within character of the Tribeca East District. Moving up to the top of the building at the penthouse, what we are proposing is in an effort to make these layouts work much more successfully than the previous design applicant, we are trying to bring a kitchen into this area. Well, that's on the interior. The net result of that is to actually expand the penthouse 8 feet to the south. As of right, would allow us to go full 30 feet, but obviously taking into consideration the sawtooth condition of the east building and the visibility, moving forward 8 feet actually does make that corner visible. So it's kind of hard to see here, but this is the mock-up, and no visibility from anywhere else other than the 15 to 17 foot area on the south side of the street. And then here is a rendering showing what the corner of that penthouse would look like with the 8-foot addition, some 80 square feet. So our feeling was that this is appropriate in that it appears as a rooftop accretion, that we would treat it with a metal cladding, very much in line with bulkheads. And we spent time going throughout the neighborhood and seeing many conditions, and specifically ones where there's a sawtooth condition, where you see the sides of many bulkheads and incidental rooftop views. This slide is just showing the door hardware, and the next is just showing colors that are selected. The main story with the colors would be our facade is marble. It's in very bad shape. We're going to restore it, and then we're going to coat it with a Kime coating to match the same color as the marble, and then also match the cast iron in keeping with the characteristics of the neighborhood. With that, that's
Okay.
Thank you.
Questions, anyone?
Yeah, I got it.
Yes, Michael?
Have you consulted with a cast iron fabricator and contractor to be sure that you'll be able to
Yes,
disassemble
we
that?
looked at it. It's a kit of parts, easily removable.
Okay. Testimony. Thank you. Barbara Zay.
Barbara Zay of the Historic Districts Council. HDC supports the storefront alterations and the rooftop addition as they are respectively sensitive to the overall structure and only minimally visible. It seems a shame, though, to lose the vault lights in Bay 3 when the other two bays' vault lights will be restored. As we have mentioned on many occasions, vault lights are easily acquired from Circle Redmont in Melbourne, Florida. Thank you.
Okay. And Community Board Committee, Landmarks Committee recommends approval. Okay. Any response?
Oh, your response to that?
Yeah,
Sure.
sure.
We did explore
A little bit up
Oh, sorry.
toward the front. Yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
Thank you.
We did explore that. We spoke with Circle Redmont, and we got estimates back that each individual bay would cost between $25,000 and $32,000. And it was a very hard conversation with the client. So we felt that the very least we could do is restore the existing vault lights. We're able to do that reasonably.
Discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this is a wonderful application. I think that the suggestion to move the arches, while it does involve changing the landmark, I think is well within the spirit of how these buildings were originally built and how they were made. And I think it's fine as long as the staff works with the applicant to make sure that it's done carefully and they don't vanish by accident or anything. I think that the replacement of the bulkheads, if they are, I would say that if they were to work with staff to try to restore them, you know, the preservation of historic material is one of the tenets by which we operate, and I think that they looked from the photographs like they've been chopped up a bit, but they don't look like they're in awful condition, and if the applicants expressed a willingness to give it a try, I say what the heck. I think that the modification of the storefront that results in a slightly awkward transom location is explained by the presence of the mezzanine, and I think that I'd rather see a slightly awkward transom location than to see a beautifully proportioned one with a stupid slab right behind it. And I think that, as the applicant has shown, there's a variety of different proportions and informal arrangements of those first floor windows that would more than cover what they're proposing to do. I think in general it's a nice application. I think that the rooftop is minimally visible and is totally appropriate.
Okay, Michael?
I generally approve of everything about this. I would have two things to say. One, I would like to have included somewhere that if there is damage or destruction of cast iron, that it be replaced in kind. And along those same lines, although it may be extremely expensive to restore the vault light, there are companies now that are reproducing vault lights, and if we follow the Secretary of the Interior standards, we would say then the next step is to try and replace it in kind if you can. So it would be great if you could work with staff and explore that possibility. But I think this is a great application. Thank you.
I echo the comments of the previous two commentors, and I also thought originally that, you know, relocating the arches was bad form, but we have to remember all of these were relocatable. But I caution, the landmark staff has a bad history with losing elements of.
Wait. This is 40 years ago.
And I was the discoverer of those, you remember, from this architect.
It's all jocular. Okay.
I agree with what's
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with the comments, and I think the moving of the arched opening actually, in addition to its history and so on, makes more sense both from the fact that the main entry of the building will be there, so the arches draw attention to the arched opening, but it also makes better reference to 85 Leonard, so you get the arches sort of running down the block in a certain way. It's an improvement on that piece of the streetscape. And in terms of the rooftop addition, I think this design is a great improvement over the previous one that was approved, both from the point of view of fenestration and materials. So thank you for the application.
Yeah, I can approve the application. I do think that it is well considered, and I agree that the moving the arches, well, obviously we want to make sure that they're done with as much care as possible, is very appropriate in terms of what would have historically happened with buildings of this type, and that we permit a lot of change in the first floor of buildings and storefronts, and I think it's appropriate to do so in this instance with due care.
Okay, so I also think it's appropriate, but I think that a case could have also been made for keeping the arches there and doing new or recreating on the other side, because it was two buildings, and I think that historically, for me, it worked better to read it as two buildings, and now it does read as one big block, one building. And so I think that something is lost. But having said that, I agree that, you know, we should be able to make changes to make it work, and that we do allow some leeway on the first floor occasionally to do that.
Okay.
And I
Good job.
approve
Yes?
the rooftop addition as well.
And the rooftop's fine, yeah. Hearing closed. Michael Goldblum, please.
Sure, what the heck. Okay. Regarding 87 Leonard Street in the Tribeca East Historic District, the application is to alter the storefront, remove a section of vault lights, and enlarge a rooftop addition. I recommend approval. Finding that the enlargement of the rooftop addition and the removal of the modern ground floor infill will not remove, alter, or conceal any significant architectural features, that the proposed enlargement of the rooftop addition will only be minimally visible from the public thoroughfares at a distance from a limited vantage point over a secondary facade, that the gray painted finish of the metal cladding of the addition will help it blend with the surrounding context and remain a discrete presence within the streetscape, that the order of the ground floor infill, which is set back from the highly ordered facade framing, is not a significant feature of the design. Therefore, changing the placement of the entrances and display windows will not detract from the building. That the potential replacement of the wood bulkheads at 2 bays could be warranted if they are in fact deteriorated, but that the applicant will attempt to restore them. That the proposed bulkheads will, if replaced, match the historic bulkheads in terms of material, dimension, design, and details. The proposed paired wood glass doors will be in keeping with historic entrance doors of buildings of this type, scale, style, and age in terms of placement, materials, design, dimensions, and details. That the severe deterioration of the cast iron step with vault lights at the third easternmost bay precludes reasonable repair, and the step will be replaced with diamond plate, recalling the presence of the cast iron at this bay. Michael had a suggestion about trying to replace them if possible with staff.
Think about that with the staff, right?
Yet, if it can be replaced with staff in a reasonable way, that will be explored, and that the recessed lighting at the soffit and etched entrance numbers of the transom will be small, simply designed and installed in a modern infill, helping them remain a discrete secondary presence and not affect any historic fabric.
Second, all in favor? Aye, opposed? Approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Break until 1:45.
You could do worse.